The Southern Poverty Law Center recently lost its founder, Morris Dees, and its president, Richard Cohen, after multiple allegations that the organization they ran had become a hotbed of sexual harassment, sexism, and racism. But that's not SPLC's only problem right now. It calls itself an anti-hate organization, but in fact, the SPLC strongly resembles a racket. They've amassed more than $500 million by calling any enemy of the Democratic Party a racist or an anti-gay bigot or whatever works in an effort to purge them from society. For doing all of that, they get an indirect government support because they're a tax-exempt entity. Senator Tom Cotton is a Republican, represents the state of Arkansas. He recently sent a letter to the IRS urging them to investigate the SPLC's tax-exempt status. Senator Cotton joins us tonight. Senator, thanks very much for coming on. So just the obvious question first. This is an organization, a small organization that has a $500 million endowment. How are they tax exempt exactly?
Yeah, so the Southern Poverty Law Center has over $500 million. About a quarter of that, Tucker, is parked in overseas accounts, as best we can tell. I don't know many charitable advisors say it's best practice to send your endowment to overseas accounts in the Caribbean. That's one reason why Charity Watch gives them an F rating, a very well-deserved F rating. Because you said, Tucker, they've really become kind of a hate group themselves. They have this so-called hate map, and they use it to stigmatize their political opponents. You know, respectable center-right organizations like the Family Research Council, their Alliance Defending Freedom. It's fine if you don't agree with those organizations. There are plenty of groups on the left I don't agree with, but I don't try to stigmatize them as a hate group and then go peddle that to CNN, the New York Times, try to attack their donors.
Of course, and it's not a question of disagreement. I mean, you're not calling for lots of liberal organizations to lose their tax exemption, but if you are a clearly fraudulent organization that mismanages your money, and you're basically running a for-profit organization, how do you keep your tax exemption?
And that's what I've asked the IRS to investigate. I mean, funding lawsuits, to include left-wing lawsuits, in what you think is the public interest, is a tax-exempt purpose. Serial, repeated defamation against your political opponents is not a tax-exempt purpose. And then talking about misusing funds, Tucker, I mean, Morris Dees, the founder there, was paid $400,000 a year, apparently to do nothing other than consistently sexually harass young women working at the Southern Poverty Law Center.
And according to its own employees, commit acts of racism even as they claim to fight racism. So is there no body? So once you receive, as a procedural question, once you receive tax exemption from the Internal Revenue Service, do you just keep it forever?
So the Internal Revenue Service is responsible for adjudicating initial tax exemptions and then also reviewing it as well. That's why I've asked the IRS to review the Southern Poverty Law Center's tax exempt status. They were founded decades ago. They claim that their role was to fund lawsuits, to eliminate the Democrat system of Jim Crow and segregation. Right. Now they've turned into just a serial defamer of their political opponents. That's why the IRS needs to relook at their tax-exempt status.
And I hope they will. And what about Media Matters, which also has tax-exempt status, but which was caught, I mean, without any question at all, coordinating with the Hillary Clinton for President campaign in violation of federal tax law, and yet they retained their
so tax-exempt charities should not be coordinating with any political campaign. They shouldn't be engaged in political activities. I think it says something about the Southern Poverty Law Center that they recently hired Tina Chin, the Jussie Smollett fixer, Michelle Obama's former chief of staff, to come on and fix their workplace culture, or perhaps to take advantage of the $500 million they have and form a super PAC to attack the president and the Republican Party next year in the election.
There's no body that can essentially audit the, I mean, what it needs is an audit, clearly.
No, it needs an audit very badly. I hope the IRS will do that as part of their investigation and unveil to the American people that Southern Poverty Law Center has become nothing but a racket that's designed solely to slander and defame its political opponents. So
the IRS was caught under President Obama hurting conservatives, refusing to grant their organizations tax exemption for purely political reasons, and no one was ever really punished for that. Can you get them to pay attention to your request, do you think?
I certainly hope we can. The letter that I sent today is just the first step I'm taking to try to get the IRS focused on this serious problem. You have, again, a $500 million so-called charity that has systematic racial and sexist discrimination problems. And at the same time, it's simply using that money to target its political opponents.
Yeah.
That's not what American taxpayers are subsidizing when we give people tax-exempt status. We give those things to churches or adoption shelters or shelters for battered women, not to defame your political opponents, sexually harass every woman that works in your office, and discriminate against minorities.
It'd be nice to get the Civil Rights Division of the DOJ over there. Maybe they could do what they did with Roger Stone.
Or the Department of Labor or the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission.
Senator Cotton, it's great to see you tonight. Thank you very
Tucker.
much.
Yeah.